I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, I tend not to think rationally. Well, if I was a bet man, I'd probably say it's probably not a good thing. Got an email here from a viewer. He says, "Hey Corey, I just finished reading your book once through, and I'm about to read it again." He says, "I can't tell you how helpful it is, and since I've already had success applying your techniques, so thank you." He says, "In your book, you say that a man who understands women doesn't argue with them." He says, "I'm still struggling in this department. And all of my life, I've avoided conflict, and as a result, I do not handle it well. When I face an argument with someone who is adamant about their position, my body suddenly goes into a defensive mode." You know, what's interesting about that is it's obviously something that a behavior and a pattern of responding that you probably learned when you were a child. And so whenever there was a conflict or a problem, you literally, at this point in your life, you respond how you were conditioned to respond, which you probably learned from your parents or family members or whoever it was that raised you, whether it was a healthy way to interact with people or a dysfunctional way. He says, "My face gets red and I tend to not think rationally. As you can tell, this leads to my weakness showing through and the arguments never end well." Well, at the end of the day, behind anger is always fear. Usually the fear that either A, you don't think that you got what it takes to pull off what you want to pull off or accomplish the things that you want to pull off, or that you fear that you won't be loved. In other words, the person that you want, the object of your affection, that she won't love you, or that once she really gets to know you, then she'll really want nothing to do with you. And I know when I was younger, that was an innate fear that I had, just because growing up in an environment where you don't get love and hugs and I'm proud of you and stuff like that. So you don't know what a normal, healthy interaction is between a man and a woman. And you're basically winging it. And like nobody teaches you this stuff in grade school. And so it gets really hard to know how to show up, especially like in my case, basically all I ever saw every night was my mother bitching at my dad about something and complaining, and him just basically drinking his beer and watching the TV and kind of feigning like halfway acting like he was listening to her when he was really just kind of tuning her out and being completely lost in his own world. And so if you grow up in an environment where you learn that kind of behavior from other people, it's like you become conditioned. And what's interesting is that literally gets locked into your nervous system. That pattern of responding gets not locked into your nervous system to the point where whenever a certain type of triggering event, obviously in your case it's some kind of conflict happens, you respond pretty much in a programmed way that you learned in your childhood. And at the end of the day, when you're coming from a fearful place, what you fear, you attract. Because if you're afraid of losing someone, or you're afraid that somebody's not going to love you, or that ultimately you just simply ain't got what it takes to make somebody else happy, then you're going to do things, say things, and act in ways that in essence communicate that you don't feel like you deserve to be there or that you're worthy, and eventually the woman's going to agree with you and leave. He says, "One particular issue I've had actually has nothing to do with romantic relationships, but one at work. I teach at an international school and I'm partnered with a co-teacher. We are supposed to be both leaders in the class and share leadership equally. It all started well at the beginning." Well, anybody that knows anything about leadership knows that even in the military, there's always somebody that's in charge that everybody else looks to for chain of command, because the word lead means to go first. Leaders lead by example, not by force. I think Sun Tzu said that. So he says, the first big event of the year, everything went great. He says, well, the next one rolled around and my partner approached me with an idea for it. I went along with her idea because I thought it was a good idea, and I felt it was her turn to lead the next project. All went smooth there, but afterwards is where the problem started. She's a very headstrong woman and started to take more authority. Yeah, in essence, because you moved more into your feminine, which caused her to move more into her masculine in order to facilitate the objective of your group, you and her, accomplishing something. And typically, most feminine women don't want control. They want you as the man to handle all the details. And so when you force a woman to do that, and she's not really it's not natural to her essence, or it's just something she just doesn't want to do, that's the way she's going to react. She's going to resent it. She's going to piss her off because, in essence, you're causing her to have to step up and be the man in the relationship. And as a man, you should always gently take the lead in the role. Like if you, say, go to lunch with a bunch of coworkers and half of them are women, you should be the one as the man to go up to the hostess when it's real busy and put your name in and get a table instead of walking in and just kind of stand around, stare at the ceiling going, gee, who's going to take the lead here? And waiting for a woman to go up and do that. You know, that drives women nuts. They want the guy to take control and take the direction and things. And so she obviously, the first time around, was very comfortable with you taking the lead in things. And then the second time when you delegated that and let her handle things, she got bitchy and resentful and pissed off at it. Women don't want control, even when it comes to stuff like that. So he says, since it was gradual, in other words, her assuming more authority, he says, I just sort of went along with it, but it did start to bother me. Yeah, because it's you're not being in your natural essence. You're basically going along with a behavior just to try to get along with everybody instead of expressing your personality, or just like you did the first time around, being the leader and handling things. Leaders enjoy leading. They're not necessarily want to delegate to somebody else. You know, leaders like leading because that's just what they do. And followers like following because they like to follow. They don't want to lead. You know, like in business, sometimes some of your best salespeople or your best producers would make horrible managers, horrible leaders. They're great producers, but they're not great at leading and inspiring people. So he says, over the summer, I started to finally work on improving my confidence and standing up for myself. And since I was new to it, I wasn't quite skilled. So when I finally stood up and asserted myself, it may have come off as either rude or taken her by surprise, perhaps a combination of both. I'd say, yeah, you probably came off a little rude, a little arrogant. The idea is to be cocky and charming, not cocky and arrogant. He says, what followed was an uneasy few months that finally boiled over into a loud argument. And basically, you let things boil up, you took your personality and you pushed it down and made it subservient to hers until you got to the point where you couldn't take it, and then you just fucking explode on her. So he says, once again, I had no clue how to deal with it, and we both let our emotions get the best of us. Yeah, it sounded like two women arguing instead of a woman and a man. And it's like you just got all caught up in the emotion. You, in essence, acted like a woman, and that's why it spiraled out of control. He says, there was one more issue she tried to argue with me about, and again, I stood up for myself. And the thing you gotta understand, when it comes from a woman's perspective, she's usually arguing from an emotional perspective in the form of, you hurt me, or this really upset me, or this bothered me when you said this kind of thing. Whereas a guy, we're thinking logic and reason, and we're trying to win the argument and make specific points. But when a woman is expressing herself in terms of emotions and you're trying to use logic and reason, it's like trying to speak French to somebody who only speaks Chinese, and vice versa. He says, I basically told her that we were supposed to both be leaders and share it equally, except when it came to the English portion, which was my sole responsibility, which is required by my contract. Since that conflict, she has actually eased up a lot, and we get along fairly well. Yeah, because for once you stood up for yourself, but it did need to be a bunch of fucking drama, like a couple of 5-year-olds yelling at each other. He says, however, since then I've read your book and I've noticed things she does to test me, even though it's not a romantic relationship. She still throws tests at me, and she knows by now that it's easy to throw me off center. Any advice on weathering the storm, so to speak? Just be the leader and take the control and the direction and lead things, and she'll be happy to follow along with you. And you notice that when you stand up for yourself, she tends to be a little bit more submissive and let you take the lead. She's comfortable with that. But obviously, you can tell from her reaction, she doesn't react too well when you expect her to be the leader. At the end of the day, you're still a man in the interaction, and the average woman, most of them would prefer that you do what a man's supposed to do, which is just handle this stuff. And so you can look at it and realize that she's a lot more pleasant to be around when you act like a man and you act like a leader and you just gently lead the two of you where you want to go with things. Even though you share responsibility, somebody's still got to be the alpha. there's, like, you look at a football team, there's not multiple quarterbacks out there in the field. There's usually one quarterback on the field. There's usually one captain of the defense on the field that's calling the plays. That's got the radio helmet on, and he's getting the signal calls from the defensive coordinator on the field. There's one person there for a reason. You've heard the expression probably, too many Chiefs but too few Indians. Well, obviously in this particular case, the dynamic works well. She's happy to be submissive and let you lead the interaction, and that's what you should always be doing. You should always just handle things like a leader, and people like that. The average person, the average human being is a follower, and they would rather follow you. And so, to answer your question, the best thing for you to do is, at least with this particular case, is to be a leader, just to take control and lead the interaction or lead the event that the two of you are supposed to be doing. Because like I said, her attitude is a lot better when you're in charge of things and you just handle shit. And it's the same thing in the dating world. Women want a guy to be a guy. Again, masculine energy is about purpose, drive, mission, succeeding, accomplishing things in life. Feminine energy is about opening up to receive love, relating to other people, that kind of thing. And so when you cause a feminine woman to move out of her natural essence and into more of her masculine essence to get things done because you're not doing things, they're going to resent it, because in essence you're requiring them or asking them to basically wear a mask, put on a masculine mask, and take care of something that you as a man should be taking care of. So if you have a question you want to ask me, go to my website, click the Contact Me tab, which will be on the left-hand side of your screen, and send me 1 to 2 paragraphs max, and just give me several weeks to get back to you with a response. If you want to talk to me right away, the quickest way to get my help is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, click the Products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions. If you want to get a digital version of my Kindle ebook on my website underneath the email sign-up box, go to my website and click the link. That'll take you right to the Amazon Kindle download page for my book. Once you get there, if you don't have a Kindle device, just download one of their free e-reader apps for whatever electronic device you want to read my book on. And if you appreciate the value of the information I offer in these video newsletters, the articles on my website, or my ebook, you can show your appreciation right now by going to my website, and on the Wibbia toolbar at the bottom of your screen, click the PayPal donate button and donate any amount that you feel is equal to the value of the information. And I will talk to you soon.